welcome to the Business of Aesthetics Annual Expert Panel webinar on building the dream team, recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talent in aesthetics. Thank you for joining us and our panel of renowned industry leaders as they share actionable strategies, best practices, and valuable insights to tackle the unique leadership challenges faced by aesthetic professionals today. We also have a very interesting gift for you that I'll have some more details closer to the end of the webinar for you, but a little hint, Narain Arulajah, who is the founder of the Business of Aesthetics Institute, is part of this special gift. But stay tuned, and I just want to go ahead right now and welcome to our panelists to this webinar, Rebecca Landriault, Dr. Ben Chan, Jay Erazo, and Kristin Flood. It is awesome to have you all here with us tonight.
Excited to be here.
Thank you.
Today, with our Business of Aesthetics Leadership Expert panel, we're going to dig into, as I said, building the dream team. I love that. I love that term, always have. Recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talent in aesthetics. The big topics, the big issues, the big challenges, and the big opportunities. So this is a live event, so please engage with your peers, ask questions, and we are confident you will leave equipped with actionable strategies to help you and to be able to implement immediately. But before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel and myself, and I'll lead off with myself. My name is Michael Walker, and as a leadership coach, professional mediator, facilitator, I'm passionate about helping set leaders and their teams up for success that matters. We focus on communication, conflict, and change, and with my team at Capstone Coaching, help unlock and engage the full potential of an organization and its people. Our first panelist is Rebecca. With nearly 20 years of dedicated and dynamic experience, Rebecca brings a wealth of expertise and a proven track record in various pivotal roles in the industry. Her career journey has been marked by a deep understanding of both the consumer perspective and the intricacies of medical aesthetic business operations, making her a trusted advisor in enhancing the profitability and operational efficiency for aesthetic practices. Our second panelist is Dr. Ben Chan. Dr. Chan is a renowned aesthetic physician based in Melbourne, Australia, with extensive expertise in non-surgical facial rejuvenation, injectables, and advanced cosmetic procedures. With a deep commitment to innovation and patient-centered care, Dr. Chan has helped shape the modern aesthetics landscape by combining cutting-edge treatments with meticulous approach to achieving natural, balanced results. As a sought-after educator and speaker, he frequently shares insights on injectable techniques, patient safety, and emerging trends in aesthetic medicine. His dedication to advancing the field has made him a trusted authority among patients and practitioners. Our next panelist is Jay Erazo. Jay is the founder of Advancing Aesthetic Suites, a company dedicated to providing innovative solutions in the aesthetic industry. With a passion for enhancing beauty and wellness, Jay has led the company to developing cutting-edge products and services that cater to the diverse needs of clients. Under his leadership, Advancing Aesthetic Suites has become a trusted name, known for its commitment to quality and excellence in the field. And our next panelist is Kristin Flood. Kristin is a talent acquisition professional dedicated to connecting top talent with the right opportunities. She utilizes a strategic approach to hiring and has a deep understanding of workforce trends, which enable her to help organizations build high-performing teams that drive business success. Beyond hiring, Kristin provides insights on hiring best practices, industry trends, and employee engagement, contributing to conversations that shape the future of talent acquisition. A commitment to excellence and a people-first mindset ensure a hiring experience that is both effective and impactful for candidates and companies alike. It is great to have such a wonderful mix tonight, and I'm excited about what we're going to be able to share with our listeners and our viewers. And you'll see on the screen now the main points for today's discussion. I'm confident we'll deliver both an amazing and insightful webinar. And we have some great questions lined up for the panel, and I'm looking forward to hearing really what they have to share on that. Best practices for sure, and I'm pretty confident listening to those resumes, hearing their passion. I would also encourage you to connect with us through chat on any questions you might have for sure during the webinar itself. The chat will be open. I will try to respond to your questions as part of the webinar while in real time. But if we don't get to them, I can assure you that we will capture the questions. We will reach out to the panelists directly after the webinar, get an answer, and get it back to you. So nothing will hit the floor. We'll make sure you get comments and questions fed back to you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. And you'll see if you're here watching, you'll say, hey, how come our panelists don't have their faces up? And we're having a technical problem with the platform. We're still working on that. And we don't have any the video running, but we have their voices. We have them here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I've got the first question lined up for Dr. Chan. And Dr. Chan, what was the most important factor for you when transitioning from running a solo practice to building a team, and how did you manage that growth?
Okay, a bit more about my background. I started as a solo practitioner. Now I have several large, when I mean by large medical, they are large, one of the largest in Australia, medical and cosmetic clinics. And so that is a business side of me. And I think anybody can do that. The most important factor that made me decide was I can't do everything by myself, and I have a bigger vision. That is where I am now. That I have the financial freedom and tour around the world every 6 weeks, and so that someone else can still run my practice. That was my single goal. So that drives everything else forward. And how did I manage that growth? Again, it had to do with my mindset that I read early on by E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that you work on the business and not in the business. So this principle has set my vision all the way. So I know where I'm going to have to go. And then the principle is to work on my business. So that is the most important thing for me to share with someone else. As long as I know where I'm going, every day I ask myself, am I working on the business or am I working in the business? So that reflects everything I do every day.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. And just to pick up on that, on the verse, I mean, that E-Myth book is a classic and set the tone for that framework of on versus in the business. Just for anyone who maybe hasn't heard that term. So when you think about working in the business, that's what you tend to be working, dealing with what's going on in the business, the operational things, real-time stuff happening. And on the business is really about I kind of visualize it, getting up in a balloon and getting a 10,000 foot elevation and seeing where you're going, what the vision is, how it's moving forward, and finding being able to cast the vision and direction. And I think that's the whole idea that what I heard Dr. Chan was say is that he had a vision. He got a 10,000 foot view of what it looked like, where he wanted to go, how he wanted to do that, and what his desired outcome was. And so I thank you for that, Doctor. That's such an important separation.
Can I just also explain a bit more? Just 2 minutes.
Sure, you can.
So when you start as a solo, I always equate it to being a little sailboat. You have to clean, you have to manage a mast, you have to manage a radar. And then you start to have a bigger team when you're running a yacht. So you do have different sort of specialties. One has to front, and I don't know all the terms, but you do require different members. That's how you put them together. And that vision wasn't big enough for me to being a yacht. So what I'm doing now is global online training. So I'm now an ocean liner. Again, the departments, like in my accounts department, is not one person doing accounts, it's about 10 people doing accounts. So you grow from a single sailboat to a big ocean liner, depending on your own appetite and your passion and your vision.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. And you said those last two words quickly, passion and vision, but that was what was the music that you were led by that took you where you've arrived to today, where you can travel around the world every 6 weeks and other folks can run your business. That is great inspiration. Thank you. Rebecca, the next question's for you. When advising practices on growth, what is the first step you recommend for leaders looking to build or expand their team?
Sure. Usually when I'm discussing adding staff within my clients, a lot of what we discuss is kind of the who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? And one of the things that I find to be most important, of course, is, on a quarterly basis, reviewing a business plan and really understanding what your goals are each quarter, at 6 months and for the year, and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Like Dr. Chen said, going from one person to having multiple employees, sometimes it can be difficult to decide what direction you want to go in and who it is that you want to hire. So for me, it's taking a look at what your company culture looks like, what you want your environment within your, with your employees to be, and start asking these questions. Who is it that you're looking for? Is it one singular type of role? Are you kind of looking for that unicorn that's going to do a couple of different roles? Do you have that mapped out? Do you know when you want to do it? Is this, there is something to be said about starting the process a little bit sooner than you actually want the person to be on board, so that you have the time to look through the ideal candidates. You're not reactively hiring just because you need somebody yesterday. Making sure that we're having that discussion well in advance of when you might want that person physically in your building. And really talking too about the onboarding process. So one of the things I find, especially in solo practitioners or in smaller med spas that may not have an operations manager or a practice manager, where the provider or the business owner is kind of wearing a lot of hats, is that whether or not they have the time to properly onboard somebody. Because while you might be so busy that you feel like you need another body to help you in your practice, if you don't have the time to bring them on correctly, it will become a problem down the road every time you go to hire somebody else. So you have to have these, just like we have our standard operating procedures, our SOPs from our day-to-day operations, we need to have those same types of plans and strategic plan in place when it comes to hiring. And for me, it's mapping out who that person is, when you want to do it, and really looking at if it's something that's possible. How, right? Are we going to be able to do it? How are we going to do it? And I like to work alongside my practices in order to help them out. But really, for me, whenever the question of adding somebody comes up, it's sitting down and really having a comprehensive audit on what it means to start adding somebody. Now, once you have multiple employees and you're just looking at adding maybe a different role, so you've kind of got the process down, then for me, it's making sure that you have a plan in place, that you always have a funnel of potential employees. And so once that whole system is down, I kind of talk, I begin to discuss now, how do we continue to have top talent? And that is, that's a whole different conversation about compensation and retention and the culture around that. But, really the first step is having that conversation about whether, who that person is going to be and whether you're prepared to do the proper onboarding to be successful.
Thank you, Rebecca. One word jumps to mind as I hear you lay it out, and the word is intentional. I mean, this is not just about concepts. This is about being intentional and doing things, being very specific with things, and like a good football play. You need to have some framework for everybody to be able to successfully advance whatever the mission, the goal, the win is that we're looking for. Thank you very much for that. Jay, the next question I have is for you, and it's how have you adapted your business model to ensure recruitment and retention are at the forefront of your growth strategy?
So before I answer this question, I want to provide a little bit of some context so that everyone understands, how I'm going to answer this question. So I'm located in Chicago, and I own what's called a cloud med spa. Very different than a traditional medical spa. The model is different, and I'll get into that here shortly, but I'm going to answer this from the perspective of me being the Cloud Med Spa owner, but then also I'm going to provide a perspective of our aesthetic practitioners that we call members. So I'm going to start off by talking how my Cloud Med Spa, this new business model, can support aesthetic practitioners, which again, we call members. Our business model empowers these practitioners to establish their own independent practice with no capital, very little risk. Our platform allows them to become entrepreneurs. I've heard the doctors say solopreneurs. They can do this full time, or this can be a very lucrative side hustle. So how do we do this? Well, we've created a shared space where our members, our practitioners, can rent treatment rooms by the hour. They can rent medical devices by the hour. They have the ability to buy prescription products at or near wholesale prices. All this is done on a mobile app. Our Cloud Med Spa model puts our members in full control of their business. They get to set their own hours. They get to determine their prices, their specials, their promotions. They own their own patient list. They take payments from their patients directly. And the most important part of this, and what makes this model successful and how I'm able to attract and retain injectors, is that they keep 100% of the revenue they receive from their treatments. There is zero split with me, the Cloud Med Spa. They simply come in via the mobile app, use our space, rent rooms, treat their patients, and then they leave. That's it. And as a result, these practitioners are making 2 to 3 times more than they would at a traditional medical spa. That's how I recruit and retain top injectors. So now let me tell you how the Cloud Med Spa models benefits me as the owner of the med spa. Well, as we all know, the large majority of medical spas out there are single locations, and they have between 2 and 5 injectors, with 3 kind of being the sweet spot. Well, in my practice, and I've only been open for a year and a half, I have 28 injectors, again, that I call members. So think about that. I have 28 injectors, 28 revenue streams that are coming from practitioners that are renting my space, my rooms, my devices. I've now created a diverse and very scalable business model that has been nothing short of impressive, and our growth has been tremendous.
Very interesting, Jay. And I know we're going to be unpacking a little more of that as we move forward, but I hear, optimization and really innovation on that. And thank you for sharing that. Kristin, I'm going to go ahead and have a question for you. Kristin, what do you believe is the most important factor in attracting high quality candidates to aesthetic practices?
Well, to build off of what Rebecca said a little bit, with culture, that is definitely something that is very important. And I like to think of this as, if a clinic, if you're starting a clinic, you really want to have a compelling employee value proposition that really highlights and exemplifies the unique benefits of working for your practice. So high quality candidates, especially in aesthetics, are looking for strong brand reputation, competitive compensation, professional growth opportunities, and a positive workplace culture. And as a talent acquisition professional, what I am always keeping in the front of my mind when I am talking to candidates is that the candidate experience is almost the exact same thing as your employer brand. So candidate experience is making sure that you are not having a slow, long, drawn out process. The aesthetics landscape is very competitive, and you would hate to lose out on top quality talent by extending that time frame of what it takes. So, in the company that I work for, it is a top laser hair removal provider in the United States. We are looking at, from the time somebody applies, we are set on benchmarks of getting them through the screening process within 48 hours for some roles, and then others within 5 business days, and then making sure that the rest of the interview process is completed within 5 business days. So our benchmarks, what we are looking for is to make sure that our time to hire is, always scaled down to what it needs to be. And I believe we are looking for our time to fill to be right around 30 days, and then time to hire to be less than 2 weeks. So time to fill would be from the job requisition being posted, and then time to hire would be from that first touch point that we have with candidates and to their hire date. So really what else is important is with that is making sure that each candidate has a really good positive experience with the recruiter or whoever is doing that initial screening, because you never know what kind of experience will take them in the future. They could be your biggest advocate in the future by referring several other employees, even if they don't end up joining your organization. There are all kinds of different stories that I could tell you personally that I have had just by making sure that the first experience that a candidate has with our company is stellar, and how they have come back around and are doing very well within our company. I would also say too that social media, employee testimonials, and a strong employer brand presence can also help attract top talent.
Thank you, Kristin. I love you kind of led off when you talk about culture, and I said, I always think there's places that the culture is you have to work there, and then there's cultures where you get to work there. And I love that, really talking about protecting a relationship. Something I've noticed a lot is folks that, to your point, whether you hire them or not, they can be great advocates for your brand if they're handled well, both end if we have to help them find another place to work. The idea of just being intentional again with with social media connections, it's just we can't be cavalier anymore with that kind of stuff, because the internet will just eat us up. It doesn't take much in the world of a negative press to spin a brand in the wrong direction. Dr. Chen, I'm going to come back around to you. And as you expanded your practice, as you were talking about that, and this is, I think, is an interesting, you've grown it, and they've got multiple people, and I love this idea. So how did you prioritize creating a team that could maintain the high standards of care your patient expected, and have that care be consistent across all of your various people and locations?
Okay, the first question is, how do I prioritize creating a team? Like I always start these little projects. So how I prioritize a team engagement or hiring is first to set a vision, exactly what I want out of it. So what do I want the clinic to look like, where it is, and so on. So that is the main thing that I need to sit down and think, what do I want that clinic or that business venture, what does it look like? Then, as I mentioned, it's a yacht. Then I need to put different members into place. It's not a priority. We will need someone, the HR is the worst of my talent. So then I have to hire an HR team so that I don't get bombarded with all these different difficult people that I have to deal with. So I have a layer of protection before it comes to me. So that's how I prioritize, is basically understanding what staff members or teams I need. So that's number one. Number two is maintaining high standards. I think nowadays it's pretty easy to monitor, because you got Google, you got patient reviews when you go out, and then of course I've got managers going around to make sure it's tidy, no patients complain, making sure that the consent is there, the photo is there. So this is a everyday job. This is like maintaining a high standard is the role of the manager that I put in place to see it. There's not a written rule book and say what is a high standard. They all is sometimes is common sense, but sometimes we do have a SOP. But then the SOP is like 2 inches thick. It's really hard to read through. And as the business every day is busy, you really need to be on the constant lookout by having team meetings and all that to make sure that there are no holes in the system.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. I love that lead off with vision. I always say, vision plants the seed and people reap the crop. But they have to have a direction to reap, and understand why they reap it and how it impacts their role and their participation. And I love how you've scaled that, and then be intentional with structure and detail that protect the integrity of the brand. Rebecca, next question I have is for you. And in your experience, what are the most effective strategies for scaling a practice while ensuring the team's quality of work doesn't diminish?
Yeah, so actually that's to touch on a lot of what Dr. Chen said too. It really, the first thing is really having a scalable infrastructure first. your growth isn't just about adding staff. You have to make sure that your systems are in place to support that growth. So before you can hire, you need to make sure that all of your workflows have been streamlined, that you do have those SOPs in place, like Dr. mentioned, and that you have really standardized treatment protocols, really standardized day-to-day operations. And that you have a very efficient, say, EMR system or a CRM and automated marketing, things that are going to enhance the productivity, whether you have more employees or not. I think the next step too is, as we mentioned earlier, is really hiring with intention, but also training continuously. You have to really protect your reputation, and that's around patient satisfaction. So your hiring needs to prioritize quality over, speed. And also taking a look that not only does the provider that you're hiring have the technical expertise or the clinical proficiency to perform each of the treatments you have, but they align with your values. And then my next point would be that you have to have continuous education. So again, sometimes this comes down to your time as a business owner. It comes down to the amount of money you can budget as a business owner, but prioritizing things like training sessions, certification opportunities, conferences, mentorships, all of those things are very important to make sure that, all of your providers are clinically sharp, while also, maintaining that really high patient satisfaction. And then really just kind of looking at your performance metrics and making sure that you have feedback loops in place. I think the more employees you have, the more that you need to really have an understanding that they have set goals, that you are having set time to discuss one-on-ones, that you have, benchmarks that you're looking for, and then also monitoring kind of that patient retention, the satisfaction scores, right? So whether that's out to me outside of Google reviews. Google reviews are great, but also really deeply understanding maybe in a post-procedural survey that your patients were satisfied with the treatment that they received from that provider on that day, that the patient had a nice experience with your front desk or your patient concierge, that they were offered, something from your amenities bar, that they, that we've walked them through the patient workflow, and that all of that is happening, because it's very easy, the more people and the more clients that you have, to let things become lax. And then that really is where sacrificing patient satisfaction can come into place. So we want to make sure that we're getting that patient feedback consistently, and we know that it's not compromising the quality of service. I think additionally, sometimes, we all kind of laugh about the idea of middle management, but I do believe that there is a place, especially in a large practice that's looking to scale and add significant staff, that there is a bit of a tiered leadership structure. So, while there may be a group of estheticians, maybe there's a lead esthetician. That lead esthetician is the person you're communicating with about things in the aesthetic skincare part of your business. Maybe you have a number of nurses, and somebody is doing weight loss and somebody's doing wellness and IV. Maybe you have a lead nurse who is that middle ground in between. You have that with your laser, you have that with your front desk staff. It can't be the responsibility of the business owner, right? Because as Doctor said, you have to work on your business, not in your business. So you really do need to be able to delegate and develop leadership that can help you step away from some of that day-to-day as the owner, if you really intend to scale. And then of course, it prevents burnout for both yourself and essentially a high-level practice manager who may be the jack of all trades or the Jane of all trades. But when we ask someone to be that, they become the master of none. And so we really need to make sure that we're putting people where they belong, in the right place, and really having a bit of a ladder or a chain of command, so that we're able to ensure that all of these processes are being really kept in place. And then I think it's beyond procedures as well, right? So customer service, the consultation experience, the follow-up, all of that should remain seamless. And that's when I really talk about, the very first thing I said was having that scalable infrastructure. If you're looking at scaling and we're still manually calling patients to confirm appointments, or we're making a note in our iPhone saying follow up with so-and-so patient on such day, those things very easily fall apart. So having automated systems in place really refine the process and make sure that your growth doesn't compromise your service quality.
Thank you, Rebecca. You mentioned these are the way things move and how fast things move and how things evolve and change, it's really not a great time to be to be a generalist. It's very much
Right.
being very taking. I always say, how do I take 80% of what I do and focus it on the 20% of what I'm great at? And I had Dr. Chan was talking about that, and so was Jay, on this whole idea of thinking through, what do you have in house that can be part of the success model? What does that look like? Finding the strengths and the gifts, and then finding what those people can do really well and engaging them and empowering them. They go from having to work to getting to work, and they just add incredible value to the team, and of course have a huge impact on the whole patient experience. Thank you very much,
You know,
Rebecca.
yeah, and actually, it's one more thing I did want to speak to too in relation to scaling. And one thing that I see often in this space is, we have someone that may be a solo practitioner, an NP in a salon suite who's become very successful, is incredibly profitable, right? And is ready to scale. I encourage everyone to make sure that when you are strategically planning that you're growing in phases, because it is very easy to kind of get over your skids and overexpand, especially when there are, down the street could be a beautiful 40,000 square foot med spa. You don't need to go from 400 square feet to 40,000 square feet. You really should go in measured phases. You should, make sure that the services that you're bringing on are good services that are based on demand and not trendy because the rep's been coming in, and making sure that you have the patient volume to support adding new hires before adding a payroll. I think you have to be very methodical about how you scale. That
Yeah.
way, it's kind of that quality and not kind of getting over our skids too much by adding too much too quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. You just sort of set Jay up nicely. Because I'm going to ask Jay, what specific leadership strategies have helped you build and maintain a strong team while you're scaling your practice?
So, my cloud med spa model is set up and designed to allow practitioners to go independent. And for practitioners, they are fully accountable for their own success. So, having said this, I never want them to feel alone, isolated on an island. So, I would say that in order for me to build a strong team, I focus a lot on community, on providing mentorship and collaboration among the 28 different practitioners that we have as members. Me as the Cloud Med Spa, I try to provide, all the essential tools, products, devices, resources. I try to give them all the guidance that I can from my career in sales for them to be successful. I would say that, obviously, everyone kind of here, is kind of realizing that I have kind of what's called a rental model, kind of like, an Airbnb kind of situation. But I would argue that my Cloud Med Spa is more than just a simple workplace or just a clinic where people come and go. It's really more of a supportive network that I've built or I'm trying to build where our members have the opportunity to collaborate, among each other. They all share best practices. They all learn from each other. And I'm now beginning to get more experienced injectors joining our team. And so they add a tremendous amount of value to the younger ones that could not find a job. And their only option was to, come to me, the Cloud Med Spa, where they could begin to practice and, on their own patients. I'm going to say that from a leadership strategy for me, what's most important for me is communication. And, so I do two things that I think really stand out. Number one, we have a mobile app. I don't know if anybody here has heard of it. It's called Group Me. It's a dedicated real-time group chat messaging system. Everyone downloads it on their phone. They become a member of my Advancing Aesthetics practice. And every member on that team can ask a question. And I swear my phone is going off all day long, even into the, late hours of the night. Like, what are you guys pricing, this product at? How are you bundling these services? Does anybody want to practice Does anyone want to go out and, drop some flyers off or, do some marketing together? So that has been what I think a very huge success story for me. The other thing I do is I hold monthly group me calls, and everyone, joins, and I introduce all the new members because we have new members every single month. And to me, I feel like this provides them a home and they're engaged. And so for me, that open line of communication kind of ensures that my members are connected, that they're not on an island, that they're not doing this by themselves. They have a team of people that will support them, encourage them, lift them, basically empowering them to grow their individual businesses, because that's what they are. They're all solopreneurs trying to build their business, just like, someone said, someone who, can rent a 400, room at a salon type environment, but guess what? They're by themselves. And in my model, they're not by themselves. They're a community of people. If you're in that, 400-foot room, you have your own accounts that you've had to open. Well, guess what? I have national accounts that are based off, multiple med spas with, I think we might be over 500 to 600 injectors US wide. And so I can provide volume discounts. There's a lot of benefits that I can provide my solopreneurs that, a traditional med spa can't. Like, I'll give you an example. Most medical spas might carry one line of, neurotoxin. I'll just use Galderma as an example. I just picked that out of the blue. And they do that because they try to buy as much as they can to get the best price point they can. And that's all that they offer. It may be a second one. In our model, I can offer 5 different neurotoxins. To me, it doesn't matter what the injector decides to buy. That's up to them in consultation with their patient. And maybe it's just ROI related, but I don't get involved with that. But my model allows us to, or I can offer my practitioners Daxi, Botox, Xeomin, Dysport, Juvo, all at like national pricing, or what I would call a group purchasing plan. Because of the volume that we have, we can offer much lower prices. So day one, our practitioners can come in and they have pricing power. They can compete with probably 80% of all the medical spas that are in my area, just because of the price that they are getting for the product. That's just one example that, I'm just dropping here on what kind of sets my model apart from, say, a traditional medical spa.
All right. Thank you, Jay. You remind me of a saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's kind of what I hear you saying and doing. Just as just watching our time, so we can hit all the questions we have tonight. Kristin, the next question I have is for you. What strategies do you recommend for practice owners to retain top talent and build a cohesive team culture?
I really love this question. I say that retention and team culture absolutely go hand in hand. The key here is to create an environment where employees feel valued, motivated, and also part of a bigger mission. So some of the proven strategies that I would share with participants would be: number one, recognition and incentives. Top performers thrive on recognition, whether it's financial rewards, career advancement, or public acknowledgement. Making employees feel appreciated increases loyalty. The second thing that I would say, and we've also already heard Rebecca talk about this, is clear career pathways. Employees in aesthetics often look for growth. That is always my number one question that I get, especially from the providers that I am hiring day in and day out. Whether it is leadership, specialized training, or increased responsibility, these people are looking for a structured career development plan, and so that they can stay engaged and continue to learn new skills. I would say 3, high performance expectations and accountability. A team culture is only as strong as its weakest link. So setting clear performance expectations, offering mentorship, and addressing low effort directly fosters a culture of excellence rather than complacency. 4, I would say collaboration over competition. In highly competitive industries like aesthetics, individual performance matters, but excessive internal competition can be toxic. So leaders should create a team-oriented culture where collaboration is just as valued as results. I'd say 5, ongoing training and development, investing in continuous education, hands-on training and certification makes employees feel invested in and less likely to leave. We've already heard some of our panelists say some things like that. And then 6, I would say regular check-ins and open communication. Leadership should be approachable, should always provide regular feedback, address any concerns, and ensure that employees feel heard. So to wrap all of that up in a pretty little nugget, a strong culture doesn't happen by chance. It's built intentionally through leadership, incentives, and clear expectations.
Very well summarized. And I love the, again, that word intentional is a big deal. But, Gallup just came out a recent survey, and the level of employee disengagement is worse than the last time they did it. And the number one contributing factor that was identified was respect, lack of respect in this case. And respect is such an easy thing to do because that's communication. It's being intentional, asking people, find out what they want, how they want it, and how to. But we just get so busy being busy, we forget to connect to the human side of our people, and it's tough because time is a very finite product, as we all know. So thank you very much for that, Kristin. Dr. Chen, the question I have for you is, what challenges do you face in hiring for a specialized field like aesthetics, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Okay, I'll go a little bit off tangent here because I'm more business-minded rather than more technical. My first challenge when reflecting back where I was, because I've got so many clinics and I have to face exactly what my business model is. The most successful business models that I've got, the clinics I've run, are system dependent. You open the door, boom, people come in. I wish I got more of those, and I'm still trying to get to create more of those system dependent ones. The more people dependent one are so more specialized and they're harder to scale. So I understand both my weaknesses and my strength in both of my models because I said I do have many clinics. Ultimately, I like to have a system-dependent one rather than a people-dependent one. However, having the people-dependent clinics, they are harder to fall in terms of difficult times. As past COVID, we all suffered losses, but it was my people-dependent businesses that keep afloat, and they've increased. And whilst the system-dependent ones suffer a little bit. So when it comes to the second question is, how did I overcome like hiring or specialized people who specialize in their skill? It comes back to exactly what my model is. If I know that particular place means demographics, what people want to pay, what people want and what people want to pay. So I have to then fit in that skill and say, okay, this is an area specializing a lot of demand in pigmentation, and another area very high demand on skin rejuvenation. So I do have to understand what the demographics is. I do have to have a survey and know exactly what people want and what they are willing to pay. So not all my clinics are skilled or equipped same. So, yeah. So, and again, sometimes if I have to have a candidate that has the qualifications and the skill, as someone already mentioned, they absolutely lack customer service experience. They absolutely bombed out in terms of they think because they've got a skill, therefore they are tops, but it's not. It's all about customer service for us.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. I love that, the supply system dependent versus people dependent. And as soon as you said system dependent, I immediately thought of McDonald's.
It is. We're moving towards that, but then it's
Right.
like hair removal. People come in, you just do hair removal and get out. That's system
right.
dependent, right?
Yeah. But the people dependent, and that it survived better in COVID, which makes total sense because people rally to relationships better than rally to systems. And I can see the benefit of both of them. But great way to break that down. Thank you very much, Dr. Chan. Rebecca, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How do you help practices develop a hiring strategy that aligns with both their business goals and the needs of their patients?
So this is kind of the bread and butter of what I do as a consultant, right, or a business coach. And I think that hiring and staffing is probably the pain point that my clients really focus on the most, right? It's, everybody says it's difficult to find good help right now, or I can't keep my employees around, so a lot of what I do is start out every conversation kind of with that audit, right? And we're going to come in and we're going to develop a very specific hiring strategy. We want to make sure that the person that we're adding is going to align with the business's goals, make sure that they're going to have high quality care. It's not just about filling positions, right? We need to build a team that's going to drive revenue, enhance the patient experience, and strengthen the practice overall. So for me, I like to sit down and really start from the very beginning and helping my clients write, that they're writing the right kind of job description. So they are getting those quote unquote qualified leads. So we need to define a really ideal candidate profile, create a blueprint, make sure that we're outlining technical skills, certifications, and also the soft skills that we don't always see in job descriptions, right? Making sure that patient communication, teamwork, ability to sell. I think that there are a lot of really great clinical practitioners out there that struggle with even selling their own expertise and ensuring that we're giving the patient the best kind of treatment outcome. Or in making sure that we're getting the revenue and the retail sales, that's the right way. And really discussing kind of the cultural fit within those job descriptions. That's really the first step in making sure that the person that we're going to bring on board is really aligned. So for me, it's kind of assessing the business goals first. Are we bringing someone on because we're so booked that we need somebody that we're delegating the same procedure that we do away to them? Or are we adding somebody because we want to add new procedures? Maybe I'm an aesthetic nurse and I have my own practice, or I'm a physician and I have my own practice. Can I now bridge the gap between the procedures that I do and maybe some more non-invasive procedures by, say, bringing on an esthetician? Or am I such a busy injector that my day would go better if I had somebody who was setting up and breaking down my room, like a medical assistant? And also it kind of depends on, we're taking a look at what, from a healthy profitability standpoint, what your practice can quote unquote afford in terms of who we're bringing on. Because, as Kristin talked about retention, one of the other major factors with retaining top talent is also the level of which we're providing really competitive compensation and retention strategies. So, whether that's a base salary and commission or revenue sharing model, whether that's a tiered bonus structure, when we're talking about performance or patient retention goals. And then, just as I mentioned with the scaling piece, is making sure that there are growth opportunities, that we're providing leadership pathways, we're providing advanced training. And really, ultimately, my goal in all of this is streamlining that hiring and onboarding practice so that any of my business owners can continue to work on their business instead of in the hiring process. So I do, in several of my practices, work as a bit of an onboarder. So I do often kind of roll out what I call a 6-week training program. It's a little bit of a truncated training program. Obviously, I can't be everywhere at once, and I'm not going to be in someone's office showing someone how to do, perform a facial. But there are a lot of other things like sales strategy, comprehensive consultations, building treatment plans, and understanding culture. Again, kind of those soft skills outside of our clinical requirements, that I'm able to help kind of take that off of the plate of some of my business owners. And if they are wanting instead to run that entirely themselves, then making sure they have a structured hiring system that has, again, those targeted job postings, a multi-step interview process, a very strong onboarding program, and that they're fostering that high retention culture with their compensation.
Thank you, Rebecca. And just with all those things, as you're listening, you think, "Oh my God, there's a lot of stuff to do." I said, "Here's permission. You don't have to get it right the first time. It's
Right.
about stepping into the space and then putting surveys in place, ways to measure the results, both from a relational standpoint about how it's impacting people, and transactional, how it's affecting operational, systemic performance, etc. So, just don't be overwhelmed, but be intentional with grabbing somewhere where you could start and not be overwhelmed by that. And but it's all about starting. It's all about being intentional with doing something different to get a different result. Jay, I'm going to go to you. And the question I have for you is, how do you manage the balance between growing your team and maintaining a personalized patient experience in your practice? You've kind of already spoken to that a little bit, but maybe wanted to expand on that.
Well, so, I've mentioned this before. Our cloud med spa model places that responsibility for that type of success in the hands of the practitioner. I'm not involved in the patient, and so it's completely up to them to provide X level of support. But having said that, I do try to provide the proper blend of support, resources, mentorship, trainings, so that we're empowering our independent injectors to deliver that personalized treatment that the patient deserves. And all of this would be on their terms. And I would argue that they would provide, like, I don't know if this is the right term, but an extra level of care, because it's their patient. It's not my patient, the practice, the cloud med spa, it's their patient. So, I would argue that they're going to spend, the extra time, the extra care to provide exceptional service and outcomes for that patient. We've been open in a year and a half, and we've expanded to 30 aesthetic providers, almost 30. And I'm going to say that growth, without a doubt, is direct result of this cloud med spa model that is kind of turning the industry, in my opinion, upside down. 100%, we're disrupting it. And I think it's just a matter of time before, a large majority of injectors see that there are other options, and they can come to a facility like mine, do their work, and leave all on their terms. Now, the benefits for me as a medical spa owner, as a cloud med spa owner, and this is huge based on what I just heard. For one, it eliminates all HR challenges. I don't deal with any of that. No hiring, no firing, no processes, nothing. An aesthetic injector becomes a member, and that's all. I'm not responsible for whether they sell or don't sell. They're just simply renting space, devices, and buying product. It also eliminates for me all marketing costs. I don't have 1 penny of patient acquisition expense. That is not done by me. That's done by the independent practitioner. For me, what I get out of it, it provides a, I don't know, stable, more importantly, a diverse, and what I would say a predictable revenue stream. I am receiving rental revenue from 28 independent injectors and growing. Now, for my injectors, what does the cloud med spa model give them? Well, first of all, for those nurses that are trying to get in the industry and can't because everyone wants 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience, how are they going to get into the industry when no one wants to hire someone fresh out of training? Well, I can open my doors and say, hey, I provide you everything minus the patient. Come here and practice, so that the money you spent, that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, that crazy amount that people spend on training, does not go down the drain. Because that old saying, if you use it or lose it, is true. It's not just in the gym, but when you are learning a skill or training at something, if you don't use it, you will lose it. So I give injectors that opportunity. They can come in and essentially become independent solopreneurs with low risk, low cost, low stress. They can begin to build or expand or just even get in their foot into aesthetics by joining the cloud med spa. No contracts, no commitments. If things don't work out in a month or two, it's okay. We part ways. Thank you very much. if someone stays with me for 6 months, let's say, and in those 6 months, they've been able to find and scrounge and pick up, 10, 15, 20 patients, when that practitioner leaves, I'm not going to fight them for those patients. Those are their patients, and they're free to take those patients wherever they want. And if they want to go to a traditional med spa, which some of them have considered it and gone, but guess what? They've come back because that low commission split that the other traditional med spas given to them is not, is low compared to what they can get here. Now, in the cloud med spa model, it's not easy. I mean, like any business, any entrepreneur knows, you have to work, you have to hustle, you really have to put your time in. You don't just create an Instagram, profile or a website and think that, patients are just going to fall in your lap. There is a tremendous amount of work that are done by the practitioner, but we are here to help and support and guide them through that process.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for that. I think as I heard, what I would describe, it's like you're offering a fresh choice and something for folks to certainly consider. But I do have to shift gears here. Our time together is coming to an end. And I'm going to, as you recall, I did promise all of our viewers and listeners a very interesting gift, and here it is. As a token of our appreciation of your time and participation, we want to offer you a free marketing strategy meeting with Lila Stone, who is the Business of Aesthetics and Marketing Director of Equa Marketing. Lila has established herself as a trusted expert in digital marketing and is passionate about empowering medical professionals with the marketing tools and knowledge to stand out in a competitive market. You can see on the slide in front of you, she has considerable specializations. And again, as we were talking before, this is not probably a time for generalization, but to retain specialists like the folks that have been with us tonight, the panelists, all have their specialty. You can hear them, the uniqueness of what they bring to the table to support you, a practice owner. This gift is from the founder of the Business of Aesthetics, Narain Arulrajah, who's also the CEO of Equa Marketing. And if you don't know Equa Marketing, they are a digital marketing organization for doctors, their teams, and their practices. So you can go to businessofesthetics.org/MSM, and it'll be in the chat as well. And you'll be able to book a complimentary session with Lila at your convenience. You also found that this, as I mentioned, will be in the chat. When I get an opportunity like this, I kind of weigh it through two questions. First question is, what's at risk if I reach out? Well, your time, that's all, because there is no cost. And I think the second question is more relevant. What's at risk if you don't? Something that's so dynamic and so important to our organization. I hope you'll take up that opportunity and that gift. And I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to our expert panel. Rebecca, Dr. Chan, Jay, Kristin, you guys were awesome. So much insights, amazing best practices, and actionable content. I think if I was going to try and summarize it, you kind of collectively made the complex simple, the hidden visible, and the difficult easy. And secondly, thank you to all of our attendees for the privilege of your time. I apologize that we had the technical problem of not being able to show you the happy faces of our panelists, but I'm glad we were able to get the information across with their voices, and we so appreciate your participation in this webinar as well. Without you, we don't grow together and set each other up for success. A reminder to like, share, and review us on your favorite social media, and you can be part of someone else's success. We love reviews. So until next time, keep striving for excellence and exceptional patient care. On behalf of our panelists, we wish you a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.